أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. It is a blessing to start the new year with the month of Rajab. Rajab has different titles. Rajab al-Asab, for example, it is pouring in this month. As Muslims that we're in the US or in the West, we have to take time and to give importance to those months, to those dates that Allah has honored. We're not very close to shrines of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam that we can increase our spirituality very fast by connecting to the shrines. So one way that we have to be able to protect our iman and spirituality is observing these special months. The month of Rajab, Sha'ban, and Shahr Ramadan. From now we will be preparing for the month of Shahr Ramadan. But in the month of Rajab, there's many different acts of worship, many different occasions. Fasting in this month, for example. It is a good time for many of you, if you have fasts from last year, from the last year of Shahr Ramadan, to make sure you make it up before Shahr Ramadan starts. And it is also a month for us to do dhikr, to remember Allah, to do astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh, or to recite Qul huwa Allahu ahad multiple times, for example. So I'm asked about the moon sighting. I was speaking to one of my friends who's in Phoenix, and he says that we have seen the moon ourselves, sighted it, with one of his just friends. So therefore, tonight will be the third. Tonight will be the third of the month of Rajab, and the moon was sighted on that time period. So if tonight is the third, it means that it is the martyrdom of Imam Hadi alayhi salam. That's why I'm wearing black. 2 days ago was the wiladat of Imam Baqir alayhi salam. We usually have a tradition that we like to remember the imams during these occurrences. Now tonight we'd like to incorporate both the imams because it is a good chance also for us to learn about the imams, to read their hadith, to read about their lives, and hopefully incorporate them. One of the cultures that we should be teaching our children is this love and connection of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. That they should read about the imams, love them, cry for them during their martyrdom, be happy for them during their waladat. We also have joyous occasions coming forth. The 13th of Rajab is the waladat of Imam Ali alayhi salam in the Kaaba. We have the 27th of Rajab, which is Bi'tha or Mab'ath, that if it wasn't for Mab'ath, there wouldn't be Ghadir, there wouldn't be Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Adha. It is the start of the mission of Rasulullah. So Rajab is a very blessed month, and tonight being one of the first Thursday nights of the month of Rajab, we ask everyone to keep each other in dua. When you look at the lives of Imams alayhimus salam, you cannot say that one Imam was more knowledgeable than the other, one was more courageous than the other. You see that the Imams acted according to the situation and circumstances present. The time period of Imam Baqir alayhi salam was a time period of flexibility, was a time period between the shift from the Umayyads to the Abbasids. Therefore, you see the time of Imam Baqir and Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, then maybe you can say, if not half, maybe a majority of the hadith we have today are from these two imams. And the way that we pray, the way we fast, the way we worship Allah, many of this we are in debt to Imam Baqir alayhi salam and Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. When you look at the life of Imam Baqir and you see that the Prophet mentions in narration that he is similar to me, and this fact that his name is also similar to Rasulullah's name, and you look through books of history, for example, People like Shamsuddin al-Dhahabi, who's a historian, Syrian historian. He even says, even though he's not necessarily very fond of Ahlul Bayt, alayhimus salam, but he himself says that he has been suited for Khilafat. It would be adequate if Imam Baqir alayhi salam was the Khalifa of the time. Because the Imams lived this way, that a person could not reject their goodness, their wholesomeness, their knowledge. They could not reject this. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam describes his father, Imam Baqir, by this way. He says that my father, and I believe it's Uddatul Da'i, that my father used to be like this. Kana abi kathir al-dhikr. My father used to remember Allah a lot. Used to do dhikr a lot. لقد كنت أمشي معه وإنه ليذكر الله وآكل معه الطعام وإنه ليذكر الله ولو كان يحدث القوم ما يشغله ذلك عن ذكر الله. He would remember God, and I was walking with him. If he was eating, for example, if he was conversing with people, and these things usually it causes someone to be distracted. For us already in our own prayers, we forget about Allah. We try, we do Allahu Akbar, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, then I think of something else immediately afterwards. But Imam Baqir alayhi salam had such a strong connection that even when he was eating, even when he was speaking, now imagine talking to someone and you are remembering Allah. So this shows us that very high, special, spiritual station that insan can have is that they can be so close to Allah that He is huwa ma'akum aynama kuntum. He is with you wherever you are. You have ma'iyyat with Allah. You have a special companion. His name is Allah. And wherever you are, you're never alone. Wherever you're afraid, you seek help from Him. Whenever you need assistance, you get assistance from Allah. You become the most powerful because of this trust that you have with Allah. So therefore, some ask this question as, how can you remember Allah all the time? How can you remember Him when you are at work, when you're a student, when you're, for example, in other places? See, if somebody has, for example, a special relationship with someone, like parents and their kids. You send your kid to the first day of school ever. You're with them the entire day, wondering what are they doing? Are they crying right now? Are they not? Are they studying? What are they doing? You're at work, you're at home, whatever, but you're with your kid. Why? Because you love them. They're in your heart. You keep remembering them, but you are working. Or God forbid somebody passes away, and you're thinking of that marhum, especially the first 40 days when you're very sad. Somebody dear to you has passed away, and you're sad, and you're still at work, you're wondering, but you're thinking of them. So yes, it's possible for insan, for man, to think of somebody while they are occupied with other things. And this is our goal, to think of Allah, remember Him abundantly, to remember Him as much as we can, remember Him with our mind, remember Him with our, for example, dhikr, when we are, for example, in the majlis or something, we're reciting salawat, and remembering Him with our action, which is the highest of dhikr. When it comes to haram and halal, then I remember Allah. He says, no, I'm not going to perform this action. I'm not going to view this thing. I'm not going to hear this thing. Then I have truly remembered Allah. Then Imam Sadiq alayhi salam continues about the lifestyle, because one of the best ways to learn about someone's legacy is by their own son. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam continues and says that وَكَانَ يَأْمُرُ بِالْقَرَاءَةِ مَنْ كَانَ يَقْرَأُ مِنَّا وَمَنْ كَانَ لَا يَقْرَأْ مِنَّا. Then he would command us after the sunrise to recite the Holy Quran. And whoever was in the house of Imam Baqir alayhi salam, either they knew how to recite the Quran, or they did not know how to recite the Quran. If they didn't know, they would do dhikr. But together they would, when the sun would rise, they would recite the Holy Quran. And mentions that a house in which the Quran is recited And Allah is remembered becomes abundant in blessings, visited by angels and abandoned by devils. So this is the second part of the life of Imam Baqir alayhi salam. The first, we said, the constant remembrance of Imam of Allah because he was a man of God, and this is his most important quality. And the most important quality of all the prophets and Imams is their connection to Allah. And two, it is tarbiyat, in developing his family, guarding himself and his family from the hellfire, teaching them collectively to recite Holy Quran and remember Allah. Please recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So during his time was a time where, to some extent, it was allowed to teach the hadith of Rasulullah because it had been for almost 100 years, had been banned before. And you see that the knowledge that the Imams have, because they're Warathul Anbiya, he began to teach the teachings of the Prophets, teach the teachings of Rasulullah, many of the narrations that people had not heard or were censored, were not allowed to be shared. So thousands of hadith the Imam shares, and therefore he gets this title, Al-Baqir, which is to open, to spread open, or to rip open the stomach of knowledge. He himself talked about knowledge so much in hadith and made hadith so important that he, in the tradition, says, لَحَدِيثٌ وَاحِدٌ تَأْخُذُ عَنْ صَادِقٍ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ وَمَا فِيهَا. One narration that is from a reliable source is better for you than the dunya and what is in the dunya. One hadith, one knowledge, one piece of knowledge. I remember once we were visiting one of the ulama in Qom, one of the Maraja, Ayatollah Wahid Khurasani, and I had a family member who had a very high level of spirituality. He wasn't a scholar himself, but he loved the ulama, the Maraja, and he loved the words of the scholars. He says that after this meeting, and he heard this great Maraja speak, may Allah preserve his life, he says, are you willing to trade everything you have for this one lecture, for this 30 minutes of knowledge? For him, that 30 minutes, 40 minutes of speech of a great scholar was more important than the entire world. And that's how it should be. That's how the tradition is saying. One hadith is better than what is in the entire world. So therefore, we have to understand from this tradition, from Imam Baqir alayhi salam, and continue his legacy that he has placed for us, that put more time and value in the narrations of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. The tradition has know the worth and manazil of our Shia, but how many narrations they know? Unfortunately, there is a movement, or there's a misunderstanding in the West that hadith, for example, in the Shia are less important. We have the Holy Quran, we don't need hadith as much. But the explanations of how to perform our actions are in the hadith. How you perform salat, how you do wudu properly, what are the conditions. All of these things are in the hadith. Not only that, I was once arguing with a Ahlul Sunnah, and they're saying that no, you don't need Allah in, for example, you don't need hadith when it comes to theology. You only need it in fiqh and jurisprudence. I said, no. When it comes to theology and beliefs, you need hadith as well. So many different firaq and madahib exist. All of them say we believe in the Holy Quran, but they have different ideologies. What makes it clear for us, our ideologies, are the narrations which are explaining the verses of the Holy Quran. He was saying that, I said for him that if you believe in Allah and Tawheed, that's in the Quran. I said, for example, then how come people came to Rasulullah and asked him, can we see Allah in the hereafter or not? I'm not trying to explain, do you see him or not? We obviously believe we don't see him. But I said, there are narrations that they would ask Rasulullah, can we see Allah in the hereafter or not? Obviously, it was not clear for them in the Holy Quran. So therefore, we need hadith to explain Tawheed. We need hadith to explain Ma'ad, the hereafter, to explain prophethood and imamat. We need hadith to explain our laws. And this is the detail, because if Allah wanted to place all of this legislation and law inside Holy Quran, people would not read the Holy Quran. It would be, say, 110 volumes, and then people would not read it. So therefore Allah put which is Quran, which is Tibyan kulli shay, put the Quran, placed it, and played the general things in the Quran, and therefore the hadith comes and explains, inshallah, is the bayan of the Quran. Let's recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajma'in. Imam Baqir's time, alayhi salam, was a time where he taught. Imam Hadi alayhi salam's time was much different. 20 years about in Samirra, a time where Mutawakkil was the Khalifa of his Imamate, one of the Khulafa. Mutawakkil was a very dangerous person. He destroyed the grave of Imam Hussein multiple times. He would not allow the ziyarat of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So therefore, during his time, Imam Hadi alayhi salam is very oppressed. They would say that the Imams that were in Samirra, that they would say, do not even point to us, because they will find out that you are Shia. So Imam Hadi alayhi salam still continued the spread of Shiism. He still had students like Shah Abdul Azim Hassani, which is buried in Ray today. Or for example, Uthman ibn Sa'id Amri, which later on becomes one of the first ambassadors of Imam Mahdi, one of the first ambassadors of Imam Mahdi, Ajala Ta'ala Faraj al-Sharif. And therefore, he strengthens his students, and they are spread. Even though we think that Shiism is weak, but actually the difference during his time is that Shiism has also spread throughout the world. Even though the Imam has been confined to Samirra and they can not see him as much, but the ulama, the scholars, and the representatives are doing their duties. And therefore we see the spread of Shiism throughout the lands. Imam Hadi alayhi salam is known for this very important ziyarat. We have ziyarat al-Jami'a al-Kabira. How many here have recited this ziyarat ever? Al-Jami'a al-Kabira. Most do not want to show off, or they maybe have recited it. So this ziyarat is one very important. Some of our ulama, like for example, Ayatollah Marashi Najafi, when he was passing away, he started reciting Ziyarat Jami'a Kabira. Why? Because the traditions say the Imams come to you when you are passing away. So he wanted to say salams to the Imams before he died. In this ziyarat, there are a few lines that I would like to connect to the life of Imam Hadi alayhi salam. One is this, is that Amrukum Kalamukum Nur. Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. Your speech is light. Your speech is light and nur. What is one example of the light and nur of the speech of Imam Hadi is this hadith that we have. الناس في الدنيا بالأموال وفي الآخرة بالأعمال. Today people are for amwal. They're very interested in money and wealth and acquiring, capital. Today you ask yourself, who is the richest person? Which is the largest company? Which stock increased the most? Which crypto, is going? Which altcoin is the best, for example? What's going on with these? And you're just worried, concerned with all these things. Because amwal, today everyone is very interested with amwal. Today everyone is very interested with dinar and dirham, gold coins, silver coins. But Imam Hadi alayhi salam tells us and warns us that in the hereafter it would be different. People will be interested in a'amal, and they'll say, oh, who is the richest when it comes to action? Who did the best salat? Who would always remember Allah? Who was the best Muslim? Who had the highest amount of taqwa? And that day we will view each other much differently. Today we can't really see one another's worth because we don't know what's accepted, what's not. Generally, maybe we could assume to some extent. But that true value that someone has, only the angels can value someone. And then when they go in the hereafter, then they'll say, wow, you see your own friend. Or maybe you, inshallah, say, what a high position. He was a trillionaire. He's a billionaire in the hereafter. And that is the focus that we're trying to then what we have to focus on is because are we created just to have amwal? Or are we created to have a'mal? And why does Quran keep telling us, وَاسْتَبَقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ or فَاسْتَبَقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ? Continue and have a race when it comes to good. Or that I have created life and death, for example, because of, to see which one of you has ahsanu, for example, the best of action. So therefore, not only are we created to do good or to go to heaven or hell, no, we're created to see that potential that we have, to see who of you can do the best, who can sacrifice the most, who can be the most sincere. So therefore, if we lose focus in this world and we become like the materialist and we forget and that we're always engaged, even though working is very good, many of the portions of worship is in work and halal and income, very good, but that should not be the only aim in life, is to acquire the most amount of wealth in this world. So therefore, Imam Hadi alayhi salam warns us and tells us that in the hereafter, we, in a way to explain this, our taste will change. Just like a baby whose taste change when they are, for example, a newborn, they want milk. Then when they become a little bit older, they want, for example, different types of food. They want, for example, candy. And then when they become older, they even change it and want another type of food. The dha'iqa and the appetite of babies to toddler, for young adult, to old person changes. In the same way, our appetite will change. In the hereafter, our appetite will be a'mal. But then it will be too late. I will see the a'mal, the action. They'll say it's too late. You cannot come back to this world to gather more. Even though we think that we have gathered a lot, that day will be Yawmul Hasra, the day of regret. I wish I had more. I wish I had that ability to see Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam all the time, to live with Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. The last thing I'll say, besides we have fi'lakumul khair, that Imam Hadi alayhi salam, the Imams, your actions are good. Even when it came to some of the mothers of the Khulafa, they saw that once Imam Hadi alayhi salam, he had given the mother of Mutawakkil, he saw that there was money there, for example, from the house of Imam Hadi. He said, why are these coins doing there? They're printed. This is specific for the house of the Khalifa, for example. And he asks, and his mother said that actually, I had nadhr, I made a vow in the books of history. It says that you were sick, and I made a vow to Imam Hadi for you to become cured. And then I gave this money as a nadhr, as a vow to Imam Hadi alayhi salam. So the Imams, even some of the mothers of the Khulafa, had belief that the Imams had the ability to cure. And the last thing I'll mention tonight, inshallah, and we'll do Rosa, Amrukum Rushd, your commands are guidance. One of the scholars by the name of Abu Yusuf Ya'qub ibn Ishaq, known as Ibn Sikit, was a grammarian, Islamic scientist, and someone well respected. They bring him forth. They knew that he had love of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, because it was a very difficult time for the Imams and the family of and the followers of Ali Muhammad. They bring him forth towards Mutawakkil, and they ask him, are Hassan and Hussein better, alayhimus salam, or my two sons, which ones are better? And there, Ibn Sikit is very courageous. He says, let alone Hassan and Hussein, Qambar, the servant, Qambar, the servant of Imam Ali alayhi salam, he is better than your two sons. Then Mutawakkil takes him and extracts his tongue, but not from the front, they say, from the back of the neck. So therefore, he had courageous scientists, Arabic grammarians, and that were lovers of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam and followers of Ahlul Bayt, that sometimes when it is their duty, they decide. Some might ask this question, isn't this the time period to do taqiyya, for example? Well, Ibn Sikit is a student of Imam Hadi alayhi salam. He knows better when is the time of taqiyya, when is not, especially when you're that close to the Imam. But this is one example of amrukum rushd, that your commands are guidance, that the imams can bring people like Ibn Sakit, that they are fearless, they'll say the truth, even to someone like Mutawakkil that everyone else would be shaking and afraid of. We could dim the lights and inshallah do a musibat for Imam Hadi. As we mentioned, the moon was spotted in Arizona, so making tonight the martyrdom of Imam Hadi alayhi salam, the 3rd of Rajab. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We ask Allah before we begin to dedicate this Rosa to all of the marhumeen, all of your marhumeen that have passed away, all of those who have a need, they're in dire need of prayers to be answered or shafa, and to all of the madhlumeen and oppressed throughout the world, inshallah. May Allah aid all the followers of Ali Muhammad. It is a night like this, Mutawakkil commands Imam Hadi's house to be opened, to be barged into. This is the Imam of the age. How much respect do people have for him? Was he doing salat during this time, reciting Quran? And they barge into his house to take Imam Hadi alayhi salam, your Imam, possibly without an abba, without a turban, just like how he was at his house, to take him towards Mutawakkil, because Mutawakkil needs to see him. A side note here is, if they didn't set fire on the house of Fatima to Zahra, they would not barge into the house of Imam Hadi. They would not set fire to the house of Imam As-Sadiq. All of this happened after they broke into the house of Imam Ali and Sayyidah Fatima, that they had disrespected the homes of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. They take Imam Hadi alayhi salam in front of Mutawakkil. At that time, it is a majlis of haram, of intoxication, of drink. Now we understand how sad it is, how angered we would be if they took one of our top scholars, for example, and they offered alcohol to him. How upset would you be? Mutawakkil has the audacity. He takes this drink that he has and offers the Imam of the age, Imam Hadi, and says, drink. The Imam excused himself and said, my meat and blood have never been fouled by wine. Then Mutawakkil asked him to recite a poem that would entertain him. The Imam says, I hardly recite poetry. But Mutawakkil continues, and the Imam recites poetry, talking about those who've moved from the palaces to the graves after their death. This shakes Mutawakkil so much that with respect, he takes Imam Hadi alayhi salam and brings him back to his house and stops drinking. But we say, lovers of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, La yawm ka yawmaka ya Aba Abdullah. Today there was a majlis of khamr, of wine, and Imam Hadi alayhi salam was offered. But in Sham, there was another Imam Ali, Imam Zainul Abidin, that was in front of Yazid, who also had alcohol present. But the difference here is Imam Zainul Abidin, his sisters, Imam Zainul Abidin's aunts, his sisters, they're bound in chains. The difference is that Imam Zainul Abidin has to watch this alcohol, but in front of him is a tasht, a bowl, a golden bowl, with the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Wala yawm ka yawmaka ya Aba Abdullah. Ya Allah, we ask you, because of these beautiful names of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, inshallah, give us the best of actions in the month of Rajab, inshallah. May Allah accept all of your du'as, inshallah, hear all of your prayers, give cure to all of those who are in need of cure, inshallah. Have rahmah and mercy for all of your marhumeen. May Allah help all of those who are fighting against oppression, inshallah. Give protection to all the madhlumeen throughout the entire world, especially in Palestine. Ya Allah, we ask you to be good companions for the Imam of the age, inshallah, to be able to work for him, to spread the message of Ahlul Bayt, alayhimus salam, and to, inshallah, one day to see the reappearance of Imam al-Zaman with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.